Hello and welcome to the Divine Renovation Podcast. My name is Dan O'Rourke, and along with me today is Father James Mallon.
Hi, everyone.
And next to him is Ron Huntley. Good to see you, Ron.
Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, guys, this is our second podcast since we did the relaunch last week. And one of the things that came to my attention was that we neglected to recognize or even tell people that there's actually two ways to get the podcast now. So there's the audio one, which we've been doing for a long time. So if you're a subscriber to our audio podcast, you'd still get the audio version. But we've also got a video version now, and we're actually in studio with video cameras.
And so please be patient with us. You know, I think last time, Dan, we were saying, for those of you watching and everyone's listening, saying, what are they talking about? Something I don't know about. So we kind of messed up on that. So for all of those of you who are listening and for those of you who are watching, welcome.
Yeah, we're getting used to it ourselves. There's a lot of awesome and improvements, I think, and changes, but there's some newness to it all, which is kind of exciting. So guys, what's been up in the last week for both of you?
I know one of the things I'm really excited about is we continue to talk to more dioceses about kind of helping them with their transitions, and I'm really excited about that. You know, I remember back when we did the podcast on, to bishops and just kind of encouraging them and speaking into those things. You know, we've had a heart for this stuff, but no kind of venue, and so we tried to do the podcast and loved doing it, but took a risk, and here we are having these conversations with dioceses, and just the thought of helping dioceses think through what parish renewal would look like and how they can come alongside is so exciting to me.
You know, well, one of the things in our goal, and we did talk about this last week, our new website and the click to commit, and our goal over the next 10 years to inspire and equip 35,000 parishes. It sounds insane, doesn't it?
Yes.
But here's the thing, that's going to happen, God willing, not through addition, but through multiplication. And I remember it seems like a couple of years ago, but probably a year ago, Ron, saying to you, when you made the shift from directly coaching parishes to coaching coaches as well as coaching some parishes,
good point.
Saying, can you imagine if we could develop something at a diocesan level? Because then you multiply impact. Yeah. And just a shout out to Father Jeff Lorig and his team in Omaha, Nebraska, who were the first diocese that I knew who kind of took this on in terms of forming a team of people who kind of would be coaches to go out and help parishes. Now we've got 4 parishes from that diocese in our network. And the diocese in Wollongong in Australia, just outside of Sydney, did a similar thing. So it's just amazing to see that, and that's how multiplication is going to happen. So we're really excited about that.
You know, it's interesting because I was talking with one of our coaches in the network, Bill, who's doing some work with his diocese, and he mentioned to me this week that they've had 2 specific meetings. In the second meeting, they defined their core customer as a diocese, and so I was really interested. He said, "You're going to be excited to hear." I said, "What was the answer?" He said, "It's priests. Our core customer is priest."
Yeah.
And we realize what our number one responsibility is to set them up for success, help them to grow in their leadership and their ability for impact. I thought, wow. I don't know. I haven't heard dioceses talk like that before, and maybe a lot of them are, but I just thought that was so exciting.
It's part of a bigger change. My work at the diocese, I've been doing a lot of work this week there. I've got 2 jobs. But in a lot of meetings, and it's very exciting. I mean, it's both exciting and scary. We talked about that on our last podcast. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, please do. We had John Stevens with us, who works with the diocese. But in a conversation this week, it was said that I think it came from the bishop, that we're going to change the name of the chancery. So the downtown bishop's office, which for decades we've been calling the Catholic Pastoral Center, the CPC. They're suggesting that we call it the Support Center.
Cool.
No, I don't know if we'll actually adopt that name, but just putting that out there and changing the kind of thinking, because in many ways for decades the message has been, okay, you parishes, we want you to support what we're doing.
Yeah,
we want you to send your people and your resources, and in this plan of change to help parishes become missionary and to help support priests in their leadership. The Catholic Pastoral Center is stepping into that identity and desires to be a center of support for the real pastoral centers. What are the pastoral centers of a diocese? The parishes.
That's so exciting.
That's on the front line. But if you think about it, that's an embracing of a missionary identity at the top level.
Yeah.
So instead of being inward focused, they're outward focused. Why? To help parishes move from being inward focused to being outward focused.
That is so that makes my day. That's a crazy shift. That changes everything. That changes everything, and it will probably change how priests experience the diocese. And because when things are healthy, healthy things grow. You say that. Yeah. Healthy things grow. And so if we're able to make that shift, or people are able to make that shift, and they feel supported, they feel valued, people who feel valued and feel supported thrive.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to help people
do. A couple
of
years ago when we launched our coaching network, I know we as a team, we decided it was really important that when a parish applies, that they actually have the support of their bishop to go down this path. And what's so fascinating was when we did that, it was like, okay, no, we respect the hierarchy of the church. It's important that the bishop be supportive, and we're also hoping for long-term placement, long-term leadership of that pastor. But what we're starting to see now isn't just that bishops are giving an okay for a pastor to move ahead. They're actually getting engaged and wanting to be interested. I mean, we talk to a number of different dioceses now who are actually getting excited about the possibility of divine renovation in their diocese. It's a total shift in terms of the communication or the conversation. Because before we were just asking for permission, and now all of a sudden, instead of just getting permission, we're getting invited in significantly, and it's a complete shift.
Had a coaching session last night with one of my pastor's cohorts, and it's the one we've got a couple of priests from Australia, a couple from Omaha, and a couple from Halifax. Yay. But one of the priests from Australia was sharing with us, and he was in the context of sharing a breakthrough, and it was a conversation they had with their bishop around sacraments. We've talked about that a bit last time, but they went to meet with their bishop to tell him about this new approach to sacraments. Again, not that they're going to be saying no to people, but saying to people, let's help you get ready. It's no longer sacraments on demand with no strings attached, because that, of course, is an oxymoron. If we actually live what we say we believe about sacraments, especially the sacrament of baptism, which is initiation into the life of the church. How can you the very idea that you could bring your child to be baptized and have an expressed intention to have no involvement with the church. It's like, are you really asking for baptism? Anyway, but that maybe the possibility of saying to a couple, well, let's help you get ready. And we went to see the bishop, and the bishop said, you have my full support. Praise God. They had their first meeting with couples and had some conversations, and of course, a number of people took the steps, a number of people just self-selected out, and so you're always going to have that. But what was significant was that they went to see the bishop and had his full support. And he even said, if I get letters of complaint, I will support you.
Yeah,
he even said that to them.
Yeah, because nothing more takes the wind out of your sails more than thinking you're going in a direction with support, and then the person whose support you think you have undermines you when somebody complains. Like that just, oh man, that hurts. That actually hurts.
Yeah, it's difficult.
And so that's really exciting. Those things are happening. Listen, something else I wanted to share with you that I'm really excited about is, and we've been struggling with it, and we'll still struggle with it. There's a tension here, but we know, and mostly, Father James, you've done a lot of work in South America and stuff, and a lot of people are trying to implement the principles of divine renovation as a model in their churches. And so we're working with a couple of people in Mexico right now to see if we can't develop some coaches who speak Spanish, and that's going to open up a whole new world. Now, there's a lot of cultural issues we're facing there too, because they don't have staff. Most of they're culturally, they don't have staff. They're not used to paying for anything.
Ron, let's remember, we forget that because of what we've experienced. We forget. Like, I was looking at some stats recently at a major diocese in the U.S., and it was percentage of their parishes. Like, they've got like over 400 parishes. What percentage actually have a staff member beyond a secretary and a janitor? It's like 2%. So it's like let's not fool ourselves. Let's not fool ourselves. Most parishes in Canada, many parishes in North America, don't have full-time pastoral staff other than the priest.
Fair enough.
And not to mention Europe. So yeah, let's remember that our perception of what's the norm out there is sometimes a bit jaded.
It's a good point. Yeah, I got called out on that when we went to our own diocesan meeting there a couple of weeks ago. It's like there's a filter that we have, that I specifically have, because you do a lot more work with pastors as you travel around the world and do different things, and I work mostly in the network in Saint Benedict Parish.
But I think you are onto something, though, because although the reality in many North American parishes is that there aren't any pastoral staff, at least most North American parishes are aware that there are parishes who do. Whereas in Latin America, it's so rare that it's virtually it's just not even considered a possibility. But it's a very similar thing in the UK. Very, very similar.
It's true,
It's so rare in the United Kingdom to have lay staff workers working in pastoral ministry, and it's so much so that it's not even. It's like, how is that even possible? It's not even on the radar of what can be possible.
Well, it's interesting because I remember one person saying to us, like, Divine Renovation's actually creating a job market. I thought, I never thought of that, because people are starting to think differently. If they want to lead different, if they want to inspire and support ministries, they need staff, and if they need staff, they need to hire, and they can't hire priests because they're not.
The thing is that it's one of the things that, Ron, you've driven home over the years, and I've certainly discovered. It's gone from my head to my heart, but everything, if a renewed parish is driven relationally, everything is rooted in relationships, evangelization, discipleship, community, all of the key elements that make a church healthy, driven by relationships. You can't support people in small groups. You can't support people in ministry if you don't have key people in place to drive those relationships full time. People say, well, why can't you use volunteers? Well, yeah, of course, but it's if you move away from a clerical model of staff, hiring staff to do the work of ministry rather than raising others up, you're going to need full-time staff in order to mobilize and support a whole church of missionary disciples. That's just a fact. Unless the priest somehow thinks he can support all these relationships himself, which is
I was talking to one of our partners in Europe, because we're looking at doing a conference in France in 2019, and we're talking about, well, who should we get to go and speak? Like, what's the blend of presenters? And I hear this time and time again, and it's funny because they think that Europe is just so different than Canada.
I know.
Because they lump Canada in with the United States in terms of the way the church culture is. And we're not the same as the States.
Yeah.
We're more secular than the United States.
And we're not proud of that, by the way.
No, we don't say that with any degree of pride.
and we love Americans.
Oh, we totally do.
We love Americans.
Honestly, we'd be,
We do.
I wish our culture was more Christian in the way that the American culture is. I mean, they're closer to the heart of Christianity culturally than I think that we are. But what's fascinating to me is, because I was in this conversation with our partners in France, and they're like, well, can you have someone from Europe come and present? Because, everyone looks at Canada and goes, oh, well, you guys are still in a Christian culture. And it's like, no, we're not in a Christian culture. No. And so it's something that we have to battle with. And of course, at Saint Benedict, because when we talk about our parish, everyone's like, well, you've got this big staff. And it's like, yeah, but we're not even the norm in Canada. Like,
we never used to as well.
Right?
We
didn't
built
used to.
that.
I remember when they were editing the book in French, and when I first saw the
Bible?
Divine Renovation. The book that this podcast's about. Anyway, they come up with, they changed the title to Manuel de Survivre de Paroisse, Parish Survival Manual, and the front cover was like a first aid kit, and I was horrified when I saw it. I was actually quite upset. It was like, did they even read the book? Like, they don't know what's inside. And I spoke to the editor, and he was making a case for the choice of it, that it really spoke to the market. And he kept saying, it's not, the church in France is not like the church in America. And I said, well, I'm not American, I'm Canadian. Yes, my dear American friend. I said, I'm not American, I'm Canadian. Yes. And it's not like it is in America. And I just gave up after a while. But so there is that perception for sure. And, all credit to Artege, our French publishers, is that the books went like hotcakes. If the French people loved the title, and although I did see one comment on Amazon.fr saying, the title doesn't match what's in the book.
Oh, really?
So that was interesting. Yeah.
Was that the comment you left? Or?
But Ron, you were. I kind of cut you off. You were talking about the Latin American thing. I didn't get to let you finish.
No. Well, fair enough. I didn't even recognize. I just got caught up in our conversation. But yeah, we're really excited to work with some people, and we're going to explore that relationship. And we're also going to try to figure out culturally, how do we do this, and what can they afford, and then how do we supplement that maybe through our donor base and people that might want to come on board and help us to do that, because we need to be sustainable too. So we're trying to figure that stuff out. So I'm excited to do that. One of the other things that happened this week, I was excited. Just yesterday, I spoke with a church that was at the MAC conference, or the Mid-Atlantic Congress in Baltimore, with Father Simon and I. And they've made an application to be in the network.
Oh, great.
And so we spent some wonderful time talking with them yesterday. It was just so great to hear Father Dan's stories and his heart for Christ and his heart for the church. And and he works with a layperson as one of his key evangelization people, and I love what we do. It's so exciting for me that we can get to work with these people who want so desperately to make a huge difference. I find it very humbling and thrilling and exciting. And now that we have, 4 other coaches currently, actually 5 now, in our network coaching with us, who people are also in the trenches making parish renewal a reality. It's so fun.
Yeah.
I feel
so
thankful.
last week, I have a question for you, but last week I had to, that's the wrong way to phrase it. Last week I had the privilege of delivering the Alpha Talk at Saint Benedict Parish. And anyway, so I've given this talk twice now, and it's a difficult talk emotionally for me to give because I delve into some personal stories that some of them are emotional. And but I wanted to get your reflections, because I think you've both given Alpha Talks in the past. Do you find them to be... When you give an Alpha Talk and the way you prepare it, do you find that it's beneficial to you? Do you see the personal benefits as well as the benefits to the people who are there?
So one of the reasons that we moved to live speakers is because giving a talk, when we speak about our faith grows. When we speak about our faith grows. And that's why we have connect groups, and we try to have all kinds of platforms at Saint Benedict Parish, like giving testimonies and all these other things, because when we speak about our faith grows. And so, yeah, absolutely. I grow every time I give a talk. Giving one at the weekend this weekend, and I can't wait. I've given the talk before, but every time I give it, it's so cool.
I think as well, I mean, just for those of you who are listening and those of you who are watching.
Hey, well done.
Again, we take for granted in our Alpha here that our Alpha is live talks. But for many people listening, you might be thinking, what? What are you talking about? I thought Alpha was a video course. And you're right. There are many ways to experience Alpha. There's the new Alpha film series, which is phenomenally well produced. There's the latest videos with Nikki Gumbel speaking before a live audience in a more traditional format. But there are some churches that actually do live talks, including HTB, the parent church where Alpha originated from. And we do that. We do live talks at our big Alpha, at our other Alphas like the daytime Alpha, and maybe Alphas in the prison. I know in the prison they use the Youth Alpha series, but in other locations they use the videos. And we moved. Was it the 4th year we moved to live speakers with the large Alpha? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I can't quite remember. I remember the events, but I don't remember
it's
the
not
date.
something we rushed into. We waited until we had, raised up people and identified people who had that capacity, and we really spent a lot of time developing those people. So we've now got people who are, been on team and grown through Alpha, and all they've known is live speakers, which is really, really cool. I think the thing for me when I do an Alpha Talk in relation to your question, Dan, is the biggest learning for me is not just speaking. I kind of do that for a living, but I remember the last time I did an Alpha Talk was our fall Alpha, and I think we had 45% of the guests were not churchgoers. So that is the biggest challenge, because even though on weekends, I like to differentiate between how I preach on a weekend and how I preach on weekday. So weekday preaching is you got fully committed Catholics. It's a different genre. Weekend is you're trying to preach in the awareness of people who might be on the outside. But when you get 45% non-churchgoers at an Alpha Talk, again, that's another step up in terms of, okay, how do I speak and address all my underlying presumptions and all my tendencies for insider talk and to speak to people on the inside. So that's the beauty around those talks. Well, and that's what I love about Alpha. Is why we always say, almost like, if you're running Alpha just for your church people even to get it going, call it a taste of Alpha. Don't actually call it Alpha, because Alpha is always going to be done with a sensitivity towards people who are not members of the church or not active in the church.
Well, it's one of the big things we have to deal with when we're coaching speakers, because a lot of us, if we've been in the church for a little while, we have a whole different language, and we don't even know we have it.
Yeah.
And so when people prepare their talks, a lot of times they're making all kinds of reference that we have to carve out.
That's right.
And because we're trying to help them be more and more sensitive to, there's all kinds of denominations here, and there's all kinds of different backgrounds and beliefs, and they're not all Christian. And so we are so unaware of the language we use. It's funny. And so that's what also changes our culture in our church. We become more aware of other people and the fact that they don't use the language we do. And the more we become aware of that, the more hospitable we can be.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
I find with and I've given this is the only Alpha talk I've ever written, and so it's the only one I've ever given. I've given it twice, and I'm hoping I don't have to give it again. But what people remember are the personal stories from it, right? It's that personal element that they take away, that I hear about like a week or 2 weeks later. I know the story so I tell a story about jeans.
I was going to say that's exactly what I was thinking.
Right? People remember the jeans thing, and I
So like the jeans in your DNA,
no, like denim jeans.
denim jeans,
yeah,
okay.
So it's a big part of what I talk about at Alpha, because I believe
I got to come and hear this talk sometime.
It's a good talk.
well, I'm hoping I don't deliver it again, so you might not have a chance to hear it. But the denim thing is what people often will refer to. It's funny, but because I expect that the questions, the small group that Alpha at the Alpha evening, I expect the questions to really let them drive in onto the theological points, like they're made throughout the Alpha talk.
Course,
but what people remember is often like the personal anecdotes, and I think that's probably one of the real benefits of having a live speaker, right? Is it makes it human. It humanizes things in a really cool way, and so it's an interesting thing to aspire to.
Yeah.
So today we're going to bring in a guest again. Yeah. Now, just like last time, we scoured the world and tried to find the best possible speaker. Well, we scoured the world twice, and this time we also found someone local, which is helpful for all of our tech gear that we've currently got on the go. As we continue to grow and expand it, we want to make it simple for the early days, and we're going to get more complicated and scour further afield later. But I think we picked the right person to join us today. She's someone from the Saint Benedict Parish team, Kate Robinson, and so she's going to join us in just a minute, and we'll have a conversation with her.
Excellent.
And we're back with Kate Robinson. How you doing, Kate?
I'm well. I'm so glad to be
Kate,
here with
what's
you
your
guys.
current job title at Saint Benedict Parish?
Oh, so I'm currently known as the Director of Communications.
Director of Communications, and I know you do a whole lot of things under that title.
Yeah.
Not all of them communications, some of them are expanded beyond that. But I know one of the things we were hoping to talk to you about a little bit today is sort of your journey into that role.
Yeah, exciting. I mean, I came to the parish over 7 years ago. I had taken a few courses with Father James Mallon and was learning about faith and had
Was he learning about faith too?
She
No.
was my best student.
Oh,
She was.
He has to say that.
I remember not correcting, but reading the papers, and I was like, "Who is this person?" It stood out. It was
That's
like,
very kind.
"That's cool."
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because I grew up in one of the 3 parishes that made up Saint Benedict Parish, and in a wonderful Catholic household. And essentially, there was a job opening for a secretary. And so I was working for an IT company at the time and spending quite a bit of time actually in the new church, often praying in the chapel at lunchtime at my job and wondering if it might be time to make a change. And so I ended up applying for the role of secretary because I just felt called that maybe it might be time to look to work in that capacity of, work in a church. And I was excited to possibly work with Father James.
Did you remember
Ron.
the one Saturday morning at the
Yeah.
end of our class? So I saw Kate and I was like, I'd really love for her to apply for this job. And I remember I pulled up in the car and I rolled down my window and you came over and before I could say it, you said to me, I applied for that job. And I was like, very good.
Yeah, so that began a very exciting journey. Obviously, Ron was on board part-time in a part-time capacity. So encouragement out there to parishes if, you think, gosh, we don't have the staff that St. Benedict has. In ways we worked with what we had. We didn't have that. There were probably 5 of us maybe on staff and not all full-time even. And so, started out as secretary, and it was the first few years because it was the throw everything at the wall and see what sticks to a degree journey, which was necessary for cultural transformation. And so
Sustainability as a value was a little bit...
Sustainability was
development
phase.
not the most important. We were
Early days.
We were growing in our appreciation of sustainability, but it was fun.
It was lots of fun.
Chaos,
it
spelled with a K.
Yeah, holy
I
chaos.
don't know where that
guess.
came from.
Chaos
What
with
was
a K.
weird? That was weird. Yeah. Chaos. Yeah.
Chaos.
Exactly.
Kate.
No, so that was it was wonderful and a wonderful opportunity to grow and learn, and eventually, I've always had a heart for communications. I'd had previous jobs in communication, and so just as you facilitate change and as you look to change your culture, communication is such a key aspect of what you're doing. And so thankfully, Father James, at one point was like, I think we need to look at moving you into communications full time. And so that's what we did.
Remember how many times we got it wrong, like before we got you, like remember how often we just really disengaged a lot of people by accident because we didn't think that way. And you evolving into that role really helped us think more thoroughly about communication, because when you get that wrong, you can unintentionally disengage people.
I think too, obviously if I read books about change management and church renewal, you see the focus on communications, but we were in some ways making up as we were going along, and it was not so much the fact that we'd heard about this or read about it. It was just a feeling that we need to, communications is the oil of change, and it's like, I think we need to add more oil, and we've got to over communicate. And the irony was that as a parish we ended up having a pretty robust investment in communications, more so than even some larger
diocese, even
some situations.
So,
and I think that was it played a fundamental role in focusing on the why behind a lot of the changes.
Absolutely. I look at the ways we've grown into streamlining things in many ways, but we did make a lot of mistakes. I remember one particular time we used to have a weekly bulletin, and it was chocker block full because we had so much going on. And one bulletin, the font was size 8. So it was essentially illegible. And afterwards, I remember looking at it and thinking,
magnifying glass.
Yeah, we should have distributed magnifying glasses with the bulletin that weekend. And so it's fun because through mistakes, there's learning and growth, and opportunities to, apologize and beg for mercy from the people. But it was, it's been an amazing journey.
And I think identifying as well, Kate, who are we fundamentally trying to reach with each type of communication? I remember about 6 months ago having a conversation with a staff member of a Canadian diocese, and he was telling me that the diocese did something amazing, and that was that they got a server and were helping all the parishes to have a website, and they were going to be providing a kind of a template. And they had done all this work. And I asked the question, so who's your primary target for your website? Is it people who are active in the parish or people who are not active in the church? And I remember he paused and thought, oh my goodness. We didn't even ask that question.
Wow.
We put all this energy, and this is a great guy, but we put all this time and energy into creating this tool of communication, and we haven't even asked yet the question, who are we trying to reach? Who are we primarily trying to reach with this tool?
It's such a good point, because we take for granted often that is the key fundamental thing, is to be missionary with all the things that we do in all the aspects of our communication. And it's a really significant change and a shift. And oftentimes we're used to the things we like. We want our parish website to serve our need. We want our parish bulletin to serve our need.
I can't find the lecture schedule. It should be on the lecture schedule should be on the front page as soon as I go to the website.
We want our thing announced for our, and so it's an amazing it's a significant change to move towards intentional communication around reaching those who aren't yet with us.
So, Kate, not only do you do communications, I think one of your most important roles, frankly, at the parish is that of leader. You're a leader. You sit on the senior leadership team. You've been part of the formation of that team under Father James and now under Father Simon Lobo. I'd just be curious to talk a little bit about what it's like to be under two different types of styles and maybe even just sort of the early days of the senior leadership team. So I'd love to get some of your thoughts on that.
Wonder do I have to leave the room for this?
No.
We do value honesty and bluntness on the podcast. So
What a relief. This new guy's great.
No, it's kind of just, even when you said that, Dan, your leader, react, but it's been an amazing blessing. And for the first, the early days of senior leadership team, we'd spend 3.5 hours, 5 hours on a Tuesday afternoon together. I know initially I was very tentative and often felt, nervous and probably didn't speak a whole lot or was unsure. And then we just continued to grow in trust. And then ultimately, our goal of making the best decision And so huge learnings for me along the way. One of my favorite things, and one of the things I would really recommend to senior leadership teams, is to do a book study of some kind. You know, we've taken up a few of those, and I've learned so much through those.
What does a book study look like on the senior leadership team?
So for us, what we've done is we've chosen a book that we all think could be very helpful, like Crucial Conversations, for example, and then we divide it up. Everyone presents on a chapter, and then we have a discussion, usually quite engaging discussion around the theme of that chapter. And yeah, it's wonderful. It's lent itself to a lot of key learnings and
Where would you
growth.
place that in your SLT meeting? How long would it take?
So typically we're doing it at the beginning, fairly early in the beginning, and usually we spend half an hour,
Yeah.
no more. And now what's neat too is we've incorporated that into our teams as well. So, you know, I have a communications team with an amazing group of guys on that team, and we're doing book studies now in our team meetings. So yeah,
I think that's
it's
what I
nice.
love about the culture of the parish, and you know, we probably need to be intentional about that as well. But there's a culture of learning in the leadership. You can't lean into leadership unless you're intentionally taking time to learn.
Absolutely.
Well, and one of the, you know, I overheard us talking ahead of time. The junior communications people. I'm thinking, oh, that's an interesting title. But then Father James says, yeah, did you hear? They actually have young people. So tell us about that. Like, talk about leadership pipeline and mentoring. Like, holy jumpins.
Well, I mean, I've grown so much and have a lot more growing to do. But in terms of initially coming on board and doing a lot of the communications myself, and then trying to operate out of a team model. So now we prepare a monthly magazine we call Benedictus, where we share the amazing stories of life transformation happening in our parish and in our midst. We also include each month a story on one of the Divine Renovation Network parishes, because we love to hear about what's going on there too. But we have what's called the Junior Benedictus team, which is 3 young people who are very enthusiastic about also sharing life transformation and stories. And they meet, you know, and come up with an idea that they'd like to present, and then they craft the story together, and they love it. Just recently, I heard one of the members of the team, she wanted to speak, she felt called to speak about reconciliation, and so she wrote a piece about how if you're walking your dog and your dog runs away, when your dog comes back, you're so excited to celebrate that the dog returned and you're not upset with the dog. Anyway, just a beautiful
Great story
about mercy and love. And
The parable of the lost dog.
Right?
We insert that into Luke chapter 15.
So, yeah, it's incredible. And I think for me, what's been an amazing learning is just the way that people are so willing to share their gifts. And, you know, they've got incredible gifts. We have an amazing photographer on our Benedictus team who, you know, is so generous with his time and his talents. And he, you know, so we're, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words often. So we, you know, we have wonderful photos that we
And
can
he's
share.
tried to raise people up. Like, I know Hannah, my daughter, he, you know, really tried to encourage her. Like, there's just this culture of apprenticing and raising up
I remember
other people.
John gave us a very high-end camera gear to one of the young women in our parish, in our youth group, and it helped to mentor her with taking pictures. Kate, if for those listening and watching who'd like to check out the Benedictus, how can they take a look at
So if they go
copies?
to our parish website, Saint Benedict, and the saint is spelled out, saintbenedict.ca, and if they look under the tab Media, they'll find it there, so they can click. And we've kept all the issues, so there's back issues at the bottom, so you can have a look and see.
I love it. We always remember when we first had this idea, we said, wouldn't it be amazing if our monthly, what we still called a bulletin at the time, imagine a bulletin that you could put on your coffee table that was glossy and attractive, and you could show to people. And that's exactly where mine is. I've got the latest one on my coffee table. I love it.
We actually went recently as a team, the 2 teams, we went to a local coffee shop just for fun as one of our meetings, and lo and behold, on the shelf of this coffee shop was a copy of Benedictus, and it was kind of dog-eared, and and I was like, brilliant. So someone had obviously
We should go around town and like
plant
put them in
coffees.
places. Yeah.
All I've heard.
Doctor's offices in the
Right?
waiting rooms.
Yes, great
Well,
idea.
I know people on the team
We'll get
who
the
do that,
junior,
bring it to
the
work,
junior
and
Benedictus to go out there and blitz
they'll deliver them.
blitz the town.
And they would be enthusiastic about it. They are not shy to talk about it. So,
Kate, one of the
absolutely.
things that it has been so much fun because we've been working at Saint Benedict almost as long as Father James in some sense, and I'd be interested from you as well. Like, how have you grown? Because you mentioned at one point, you know, executing and doing a lot of it yourself. Like, talk a little bit about that, because I know a lot of churches that connect with the Divine Renovation Ministry. there are a lot of great doers. If they do have a staff, they have a staff of amazing doers. Talk a little bit about your evolution and what that's looked like.
I relate to that very much so, because I'd definitely be someone who, likes to be a doer. Some of my gifts lie like in administration and whatnot. So it's been such a great learning and a stretch for me to invite others into doing and to try and lead those who are doing, and create, and even look at supporting people who are helping others who are doing. So yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm now, have a team that I support and work with, and they're incredible, gifted, talented people who are sharing in many different ways, and just trying to learn to support and let go and not feel like I have to do things, but I can, come alongside people who are actually better at doing a lot of the things, and, have new and creative and exciting ways. And, they are sold out for the mission and want to make disciples too. So it's been an amazing journey, constantly learning about how best to support and to be open to innovation and ideas. And it's been an incredible thing, but it is a challenge, I guess, for me in some ways initially, because to shift from wanting to take on more myself and doing more myself, and to letting go and letting others do because they're more equipped. And
that's leadership. Yeah. That's leadership, right?
How do you, what are some tips? Because you're not alone. I would say the majority of people who do find themselves on a parish staff are not leading teams. What advice would you have that would kind of, like, what one or two steps, or is it a paradigm shift in your brain? Is it behavior that follows? Like, what advice would you have?
It's a good question. I think for me, it was a matter of kind of starting small, because as Father James said earlier, it's all about relationship. So relationally, I started to, talk to people, for example, like our photographer, he'd been in some of the same courses with Father James that I was, and so we knew each other already, and he started sharing, he's got this gift for photography, and it was like, wow, okay, well, how can we engage you on that? And then now he's become, currently he's just brought along someone new onto our team who, like he's done in the past, he's mentoring this person. So when they're taking photos for events, they send them to him. He does all the, the editing and everything. He just takes care of it from start to finish. And he's going to, I'm pretty sure there's going to be an entire photography team that will be brought up through him.
Oh, I love it.
And I think another example, or what I love, you guys spoke earlier, Dan was speaking about his experience of doing an Alpha Talk. This idea of people giving talks, like my Connect group, we've had recently, one of the youngest members of our Connect group has, went to her parents and said, I'd like to give a talk at Connect group. And they said, sure. And she sat down on the computer and wrote a talk, and she's prepared to give it. We've had other young people give talks. And so it's this culture. So she's 9, and we've had
9. That's awesome.
And what's amazing, recently, at one of our Connect groups where a 10-year-old gave a talk, and complete with slides, and you could see where they're inspired by the preaching. I could see that she was very influenced by Father Simon and Father James's use of slides during preaching. And she gave this wonderful talk with beautiful insights on, can you have the Holy Spirit? Can you? It's but it's
amazing.
that cultural piece, and so where I think young people are seeing it and are excited about the possibility that speaking about faith is something they can do too.
Well, it's interesting because so many people too find that this is so foreign to them. They don't know that you can get from where they're at now to this place. But we weren't always like this. Not even our staff.
No.
Yeah.
Our staff meetings, we couldn't do those things.
I think that's always so important to underline. Those of you who are listening and watching, just to remember, because the tendency sometimes is to listen to something like this and have those two simultaneous feelings, like, oh, this is so exciting, it's so inspiring, and then you think of your parish and you're like, oh man, this is so depressing. That's what I used to experience, even when I first started at Saint Benedict Parish, those dual things, and to know to be patient with yourself, don't be overwhelmed, like, just one step at a time, set goals, don't exhaust yourself,
Absolutely.
Don't do what we did.
I was going to say, don't exhaust yourself. What advice is that?
Okay. You got to work hard, for sure. You got to work hard, but just please be encouraged. Don't be discouraged because we continue to discover, this continues to evolve, and we're in year number 8 of this journey.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you guys drive this home, and it's so important. I would say the most fundamental is for the pastor to bring people around him, in terms of just for that support. And that's been my experience of, the initial senior leadership team and what that looks like. And then now that we've transitioned and have the team has a different makeup. And what does that mean? And what does it mean to have a different dynamic in that group, and the importance? I mean, several times this week, we've said to one another as a team, like, I'm so grateful that we are in a team, that we have each other, that we're supporting one another through challenging decisions being made and whatnot. So
Excellent. Well, Kate, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. There's a couple things that come to mind. And not only have you journeyed in your role at Saint Benedict Parish, but you've journeyed in your role at Divine Renovation. We've had you as a coach on our leadership sessions in the past. So for parishes in our Divine Renovation network, they've been able to experience some of your own coaching, and that gets me excited when I think of that. You're coaching not just a team at Saint Benedict. You're actually coaching teams all over the world through our network. And I know in the future we plan to do some more work with you to create additional resources in the Divine Renovation Association. So for parishes that join the association, you're able to get more of Kate that way. And already, if people want more of you, you were one of our co-hosts on Grandparents, a television and discipleship show that we have that's currently on the Divine Renovation Association website. So for parishes that want more of you already, they can go check you out there. But guys, I know we're gonna close it down. However, if people want to find more of you, Ron Huntley, where should they be looking for you?
Instagram at rmhunts or Twitter at Ron_Huntley.
Not his middle name.
Oh, we're still doing that joke. Father James Mallon, if people want more of your humor, where would they find you?
That's what you said last week. At FJ Mallon.
It's like a warning sign. This is what you're going to get. Kate, if people want to find more of you outside of the Divine Renovation Association, where should they be looking for you?
Well, I tweet on behalf of the parish, so that's at Saint, spelled out BP. And my own Twitter handle is at K8, because isn't that fun? K8 Robinson. Robinson.
There's a couple other things I wanted to share. So the Divine Renovation Apprentice, Father Simon Lobo's book. I've got it here again, and I was actually reading this again yesterday. I have read it, but I was going through it again yesterday because I was looking for quotes for our social media presence. There are so many awesome quotables in this book. It's a really great book.
Camera.
Awesome. So it's a really, really excellent
book. Those of you listening, just imagine me holding a book up.
We also have a couple events coming up. The biggest one, of course, is Divine Renovation 2018. That's the conference here in Halifax. There's roughly 100 seats or so left. They're going to go fast. I know we sold 6 just this morning, which was like an hour ago. So they're going to go fast. So if you're interested in attending Divine Renovation 2018 here in Halifax with the whole team, with Saint Benedict parishioners, which we'll have hundreds of on site, it's an amazing experience and it's a lot of fun. I know last time people absolutely loved it. So please register quickly.
And meeting incredible people from around the world who are passionate about parish. The networking pieces.
Yeah, we got countries, people coming from all over. So can you remember some of the countries off the top of your head?
Australia, about 40 people, over 70 people from Germany. We get people from England, Scotland, from Ireland, from France, Malaysia, India. The United States, obviously, is the biggest one, but Canada is close behind.
Which is a big improvement. Last time there wasn't many from Canada. But,
Sackville, Dartmouth.
Those are communities nearby. I don't know that we're tabulating those quite so closely. But yeah, so it's a big international crew, and I know the opportunity for these people to network is just so awesome.
And meet people in the Divine Renovation Network, too.
Because they're going to they don't just have to hear from Ron Huntley and Father James Mallon. They can actually hear from parishes around the world that we've been coaching now for over a year. And wow, it's going to be an amazing experience. In addition to that, we actually have an event coming up in May in the United Kingdom. And so it's tagged on to the leadership conference there, so LC 2018, being hosted by HTB. So we've got a May 9th, there's a specific Divine Renovation Day. So for more information for that, you can check out our website at divinerenovation.net. I also understand that event's going to end up being sold out if it keeps going the way it is. So it's another one where if you're going to want to attend, you're going to have to register quickly. So if you're going to LC 18 or if you just happen to be somewhere nearby in Europe, feel free to check out. Father James is going to be there, and it's going to be an awesome day.
Ron's going to be there too. You're going to be there?
I'm going to be there, yeah.
Are you going to be there?
No. I will not be there.
Oh.
I'll be praying for you, though.
Well, you were at our last conference. Kate helped to
Speaks at
present at
conferences.
our last conference in Twickenham in London,
That's
and
right.
you were with me in Paris the year before.
Yes.
Remember, that was a great
Yeah, that was
conference
cool.
as well. But not this time.
Yeah,
Not
that's
this
okay.
All right. Any other updates that people ought to know about? Check out our website. There's all sorts of
And
information.
please keep us in your prayers as always. This is not just it's not as Scripture said. It's not just against flesh and blood that we fight. This is a spiritual reality, and your prayers and to continue to pray for your own parish. Be mindful of that. Praying for your own pastor, your own parish priest, your own bishop. Please pray for them. Pray for them to have the courage to move and to lean into being a missionary church.
www.divinerenovation.net. And thanks so much, guys. See you again.